Welcome everyone. You all know that resupplying missiles in X4 Foundations can be a bit annoying from time to time. It needs a lot of micromanagement and the resupplying process can be very time consuming, especially for destroyers, not to mention the availability of the necessary materials stocked on auxiliary ships. Therefore, I was searching for a more practical approach that allows us to use missiles by cutting down the resupply process by at least one step by using auxiliary ships directly as missile boats. The advantage is we can just stock a frigate on them and transfer missiles to the auxiliary ship and afterwards simply restock the frigate with the auxiliary ship. And the best part is we can do this all in fight, as well as resupplying the auxiliary ship with new materials. The only downside is that we still need to make sure that we have trade ships that can, in the worst case, resupply the auxiliary ship with materials that are needed for its missile production. Sadly, I don't know how I can manage that auxiliary ships resupply themselves without the frigates. If someone knows if there's a way, let us know in the comments. First, my plan was to test all different auxiliary ships with heavy smart missiles. I choose the heavy smart missiles because, in my opinion, they are the overall best performing through all scenarios. Because the Boron Orca has the most missile storage, I tested it first to get an impression of how many missiles are needed to destroy a K. After I saw that the Orca needs roughly around 200 missiles and performed overwhelmingly, I took a look at the total missile capacity of each single already prepared auxiliary ship and changed the plan to push the Orca to its limit by increasing the number of different Xenon ships it has to fight against. The change in plan was motivated by the fact that each of the other auxiliary ships can only store less than 200 heavy smart missiles. And since the reason I like to test them was to reduce the micromanagement for missile usage, I already imagined that this won't happen with them, because I would be busy all the time shuffling missiles on the resupply frigate and further to the ARC ship. So after this conclusion, I escalated the Orca test by letting it fight against 2 Ks, then 3 Ks, and after I mixed in an I, which was the endgame so far for the Orca. What I realized during the test was that a lot of damage was absorbed by the Orca's defense drones, which were constantly attacked by the Xenon Ks. Before I speak further about the tests, I like to quickly show the Orca setup I used. The Orca was equipped with Boron around MQ-1 engines, protected by MQ-3 shields. Here I would suggest only using MQ-1s due to constant engine failure during my tests anyway. Thrusters I used around MQ-1s, as shields I used MQ-2 shields, but I also can imagine that the ship is already tanky enough with MQ-1 shields. In the turret slots, of course, I used tracking missile turrets protected by MQ-3 shields. Besides the heavy smart missiles, to keep it realistic, I also put 20 cargo drones, 20 repair drones and 60 defense drones on the ship. The service crew on the ship, as well as the captain, were ordinary people with no special training, with none above 2 stars. With the ship layout covered, let's continue with our test. After the loss against the 3 Ks and 1 I decided to test the Orca in a 1v1 against the Xenon I, to see how much damage it can deal to it and how well it can tank it. I also kept the defense drones stocked here, cause I like to see the raw power of the Orca, not blurred by defense drones. The test against the I was a bit annoying, because sometimes the Orca used a travel drive, which led to both ships flying nearly past each other. Although somehow the AI had trouble turning the Orca into an angle where it could use all its turrets, which led to that the Orca was not able to out-DPS the I's shield regeneration. But at what the smart missiles were good at was destroying all the turrets of the I. Well, after I realized that letting the AI control the Orca versus the I leads to a huge time burn, I decided to take control of the Orca and give the I a full broadside. With the I taking a full broadside, its shields finally started to drop, while the Orca also started to take heavy damage since it no longer stayed at a safe distance. My conclusion from this is that we can take down the I's turrets from a safe distance first, and afterwards go in for the final destruction. Taking control of the Orca led to another problem, at least I think it was caused by it. But let me explain. During the encounter I ran out of missiles and somehow my ships refused to transfer missiles to the Orca, while resupplying the frigates with missiles from the Orca worked flawlessly. I also cancelled the attack order in case this prohibited the missile transfer, but nothing worked. Until I stepped down from the ship command, then finally the frigates managed to transfer the missiles to the Orca. So one downside of the Orca missile boat is, at least from my test, It seems that no resupply is possible while flying the Orca ourselves. After the eye test, I throw the Orca into a little skirmish against the whole Xenon fleet. Here, my initial plan was to let it fight against 5 BEs, 10 Ms and 2 Ks. Well, I made a typing mistake in the sheet menu and therefore it was suddenly 6 Ks. The results of 6 Ks against the Orca you can see here. They performed underwhelmingly and nearly even damaged the Orca. Maybe they only blocked each other's movement so they couldn't bring themselves into a firing position. Since the docked Cobras were equipped with flags to handle the small to medium ships, I could set the missile tracking turrets to fire only at capitals. First I tried attack capital ships first, but this led to a high waste of heavy smart missiles because the turrets not facing the capital ships kept firing at the small to medium ships. Overall, both tests against the Xenon's fleets were a huge success. The test against the fleet with 6 Ks I cancelled at some point, cause I would run out of missiles, but until then the Orca was on top of the fight. The overall bad Xenon performance led me to the decision to perform another test, but this time not a simulated one with the sheet menu, but a real fight, by placing my test Orca into faulty logic by starting a game in creative mode. But before I speak about this test, I want to show you the results from my low attention mode test first. The low attention mode test had the usual problems. Fights are way longer and weapons have much more trouble penetrating shields. Accordingly, in my test the Orca fought against the K and both had trouble inflicting serious damage to each other's shields. From time to time the Orca managed to grind the K's shields a bit further down, but the shields could always recover, so both ships weren't a threat to each other. Maybe it is also interesting to analyze why ships perform so much differently in low attention than in high attention in the future. For me it feels ships are way more tanky in low attention mode, but it could be also possible that the hit or fire rates are reduced by attention to give the player more time to react to attacks. But I already can imagine that missiles are a great tool to analyze the fire rate of weapons in both modes to see if they are tuned down in low attention, to see if this is the reason why shields often can outheal the damage inflicted to them in low attention. The last test I did in a real scenario. Here I placed an Orca with the creative game mode start and faulty logic, together with 2 Cobras equipped with flags and tracking missiles to store more heavy smart missiles on them for supplying the Orca. The fight started off with the Xenon sending in fighter waves. This led to the destruction of some of the Xenon fighters, as well as some defense drones before the Xenon Ks arrived, one after another. The problem with the Orca setup during the engagement with the Xenon fighters was that the flags are only facing upwards. Accordingly, small to medium ships approaching from the downside have an easy time staying alive. The first Xenon K who joined the battle I think did not even shot a single time. At least I didn't recognize one, but its first engine as well as its first turrets were quickly destroyed, and the K was destroyed before even the third K joined the battle. With 3 Ks at the same time on the field, the Orca started to take noticeable damage to its shields, but even then it took the Ks some time to grind down the shields. Between the first and second K destroyed, I transferred the stored missiles on my Cobras to the Orca to keep the Orca in the fight. When the second K exploded, it was game over for the Orca, cause the explosion took all the Orca missile turrets with it. With the Orca defensiveless sitting in space, it still took the remaining 3 Ks 3.5 minutes to grind the Orca down. I think overall we can summarize the performance of an Orca equipped with smart missiles in high attention mode as absolutely destructive, and can say that it is an absolute powerhouse beneath all available ships in the game. Although the Orca is way more handy than other ships, using missiles because with the stock materials it can take on whole Xenon fleets. And in case the Orca runs out of missiles, we just need to have trade ships with extra materials and a frigate at the ready to quickly resupply the Orca to keep it in the fight. Further, it is also to mention that defense drones have real destruction potential for Xenon ships, which boosts a lot of the survivability of the Orca. In low attention mode, the usual problems occur. One Orca was no threat to its opposing K, and the K was in return no threat to the Orca, because the shields of both could outregion the incoming damage. The fact that sometimes the Orca was able to push the K's shield capacity below 90% suggests that 2 Orcas could already be enough to destroy a K in low attention mode. I hope this video was interesting and you found a new toy to play around with. If you like my content, you can support me by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. So far, that's from my side, and I wish you a nice day.